Rob Lee here, folks, from MTR Podcast, and this month's presenting sponsor is Double Dutch Boutique. Double Dutch is vintage-inspired flair with a contemporary cut. The boutique features sought-after independent designers from around the world, as well as assorted goods produced by local artists and makers. Double Dutch promises a shopping experience just as unique as its clothes. Pop on over to www.doubledutchboutique.com today for their latest goods. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and this is on MTR Podcast. And today's guest is artist Vinnie Hager. Thank you for coming to the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. My pleasure.
So we have some mutual, we know some mutual people, and I believe in my girlfriend's house, there's a nice blanket that has your print and design on there. So I was like, I need to talk to this guy. What's going on?
Yes.
So if you would, could you describe your work, your creative interests, and kind of basically what you do while you're on the pod?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Vinnie Hager. I kind of have developed this like intricate doodling kind of symbol and shape based artwork style that I then kind of branch away from just like normal drawings and canvas works and kind of use this patterning that I've created to take shape of furniture or skateboards or custom shoes. Really can cover anything with this kind of doodle style artwork that I've been doing. So that's kind of like the simplest way to describe it, I think.
So And that's cool. I've seen some of the, I've seen like various versions of this kind of doodle style, and what I've seen with what your work looks like reminds me of a few different, Keith Haring comes to mind, or have you. So what influences, like, where did your style come from, and what influences are there? Because you mentioned skateboarding. So I would imagine that that's part of your background as well. But what are some of your interests, and where does what went into coming up with your style?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I've always kind of skateboarded at probably like 6th or 7th grade. I started skateboarding, and kind of around that same time I never really paid attention in class too much in like middle school. And I'd always like doodle and like draw and cover all of my papers and my handouts and my tests. So the kind of like scribble and quick doodles kind of came from not paying attention in middle school. And I was always like an artistic kid. My mom was pretty artistic, and kind of it just formed over time by doodling on school papers. And then I had like one of those kind of cheap canvases from like Michael's I had laying around. I was like, let me just do this kind of doodle stuff on the canvas. And it kind of it hasn't stopped since then, but it has definitely like taken on new forms and kind of gotten cleaner and crisper, and taken on a new life since then. But that's kind of like the basis. So
in it's refined from where you started off at. I can definitely relate as one of those kids that I always would joke about. I rather just have this B grade on this test because I want to draw for the rest of it. Yeah. And sometimes it would be in that corner. It's like, this is my test, and I'm like in the corner just drawing something.
Always.
And it's always this self-portrait that doesn't look like me, but it's like, this looks like me somehow, right? And yeah, I definitely relate to it. It's just like something that's in your head, and you're just transferring it to whatever the medium is. So skateboarding. So more on that. So is that something that you're doing in conjunction with it? Because I see that everyone since COVID has picked up a skateboard and they're rolling their ankles and knocking back beers and eating pizza. So what is your relationship with skateboarding?
Yeah, I think, same kind of middle school era. I started skating. My best friend, Rico, he lived in my neighborhood, and he had like a skateboard in his closet, and we were like, oh, let's just kind of like fiddle around with this. And then I think it's like this January, it'll be like 11 years or something that we started skating. So we've like never kind of put it down. I don't know how maybe that influenced my art, but it definitely helped in like building a community of like creative people and, meeting like-minded people. So I think art and skateboarding kind of go hand in hand in some routes, but it started from there.
That's cool. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So with your art, and I see that you're putting stuff out there all the time. I'm gonna be looking for my stickers. So can you describe maybe a few memorable responses you've had to your work? Because you definitely have something that's distinct and that's uniquely yours, and it pops. And I'm glad I'm able, to get you while you're on the come up before you're too big for us little Baltimore-based podcast. So what's a special response that you can recall that your work has received?
I think the first one that comes to mind, it was probably this summer. There was, I was getting all these messages about these I had done a custom pair of Yeezy slides. I just drew on the slide, and then I guess some Chinese factory did a massive knockoff, blatantly took the artwork and just stretched it over so they took the fake Yeezy slide and then took my artwork verbatim and just stretched it over and then mass sold it. And these people in Nigeria were messaging me oh, they're selling them here, they're selling them there. And then I'm not a big sports person, but a couple days ago, some dude that just got drafted to the Golden State Warriors was wearing the fake slides. And then they're people saw them at the Patapsco flea market. They were selling them there. And so I think that's the main thing, whether that's good or bad. I don't know, but that's definitely been a strange, memorable thing so far. That's
actually really fire when you've crossed over in such a way that you're now being bootlegged. You're now being knocked off and bootlegged.
I'm I can't tell if it's good or bad or how I feel. There's not much I can do legally or really anything about it. So I think it's funny when little scenarios oh, so-and-so's wearing them, or they're selling them here, or, we're in, this small African, town and they're selling them on the sidewalk, or all these random DMs and messages about them will come in. So I think that's probably the funniest thing right now.
I mean, just wait till you get up there to that higher echelon, and it's I'm going to go return to this town in Africa that has all of my knockoffs, and
I'm going to buy them all.
Yeah, here's the real thing. Here's the genuine article.
Yes.
So obviously we're all in this period of COVID, and I think it's been a very I think for creatives, it's been a very unique opportunity and set of challenges. So, and maybe in that vein, in terms of challenges and opportunities, how has COVID kind of changed your approach to creating what you do ultimately?
Yeah, I think, right when probably last February or March, COVID was kind of really, it was starting to get really, really serious. And I don't think my creative mind switched, but I started to take more time for myself and to be okay, I've always wanted to do this project. I've always wanted to do that project, and just being able to have that wholesome time by myself to just create those things that have always been on my list. I wanted to do I wanted to make a downloadable coloring book. So I did that. Yeah. And it was something for somebody to do inside their house, or I wanted to make an Instagram filter in my style of artwork. So I did that. So there was all these kind of projects that I had in the back of my head, and then kind of stuck in the house. It fueled my creativity even more, because I was all right, I'm going to do this. I got this time. And then I kind of just sat down, and I'm a big advocate of a to-do list. I make a to-do list every day. So, when COVID started, the lockdown started, I was all right, let's just stay on these to-do lists and kind of get these projects that I've always had in mind done. So I think it didn't really stop me from doing a lot of things. Of course, I wanted to do local pop-ups, or I want to do outdoor murals and things. So those ideas I wanted to do kind of came to a halt, but more digital projects and other things kind of really helped me through those kind of lockdown times.
Yeah. And as we're recording this, there's more talk about more goofy lockdown Larry things.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that. And yeah, I definitely echo the sentiment. I don't know if you're an air sign, but I think us air signs, we get in here. I found ways to refine and make, I guess, ultimately refine what my craft is. I could sit here and put on a microphone and record some stuff. And I was like, all right, I don't need to have someone do Photoshop. So let's learn Photoshop. Exactly, I don't need someone to learn how to stream this for me. Let me learn how to stream and kind of make the most of the time. And, we're getting to the point where I think major changes are going to present themselves and how what we deem as being normal, whether it be your regular day-to-day work life for people who are doing both, who are doing the creative and going into an office or doing whatever it is to pay the bills. That's kind of the thing that I'm seeing. Like, it's a lot of things that's going to change. And I think if you're able to refine what you're doing, which you described, and what I'm attempting to do, it puts you in a very advantageous spot, just to really do well and kind of call your own shot and to bet on yourself, literally.
Yeah, for sure. And to piggyback on what you were saying, I had my friend Rico, who I mentioned earlier, we started skateboarding together. He would help me run my web store and certain things. And I was like, well, I got time. Let me take it upon myself and learn how to update it and do little coding things and take things more on myself and kind of learn the ropes and just to be able to do it yourself. And I think it was a good time to kind of learn some things that I wouldn't have normally learned if the world was COVID free. Yeah,
because it's like all of these things that we take for granted, they're just quickly taken from us. It's like, oh, I'm going to go here. I'm recording from an undisclosed location. No, I'm recording from my house, and I got the nice green screen behind me and all of that. But normally this podcast would be taking place in a comedy club. I had this residency thing at a comedy club, a Big Improv, and that was really cool. But if I wasn't able to figure some things out, and I know how to do all of my stuff on my own, but to do it in a way that looks a little more polished, like this is. Sure. I can't let something like that stop me from doing ultimately. It's like these things aren't related per se. Like me podcasting has nothing to do with what's going on outside. It's being able to talk with someone such as yourself that's a dope creator and have a conversation.
Yeah.
So speaking of creators, so I'll broaden this out. Name a few creators or designers, brands, if you will, that you're really into, that you just dig and you think they're doing good stuff.
Yeah, I think, of course, I mentioned Rico. He's my best friend. He's a photographer. He makes and he does a lot of graphic design stuff, animation stuff. So I think I try to stay off social media to a bit, not to get too influenced or get too jealous or anything. So, but a lot of film photographers I look up to. My roommate, Courtney Lang, he's a super sick film photographer. Brand wise, I don't know. I like Palace. I like all the kind of hype stuff. Supreme's cool.
Yeah.
I'm kind of blanking on other things that I'm inspired by right now, but yeah, just a lot of local Baltimore creatives I look up to and kind of, but yeah, I've been trying to wear my clothes more, which I don't do too often, but I'm blanking on other clothing brands and stuff like that. But
that's all good. I get this running bit. My girlfriend always gives me crap. She was just like, well, if we were to make a Funko Pop of you, it's just going to be somebody wearing a Carhartt shirt. Cause I've realized every shirt I own is Carhartt, and unpretentiously, I was like, they just fit better. I don't know what to tell you.
You can't go wrong with one,
I'm not a white girl in a coffee shop. Can I live? I think that notion that, being off of social media is an interesting one. It reminds me of this. I think it was this interview I was listening to with Currency, the rapper. And he was just like, when I'm in production mode or in album mode or mixtape mode or whatever, I'm not listening to anybody's stuff that's current because I don't want to be influenced by it. And I think that is a very, I think that's an interesting take on it, because you start listening, when I used to rap, as every black dude has a story about, I guess, I would find certain rappers I would listen to. I didn't really listen to much West Coast rap, but if it was New Yorkers, Philadelphia, not much Baltimore rap, I must admit, I would realize, I was like, yo, I sound like Beanie Siegel right here. Or shit, I don't want to be like this. What am I doing? I don't live this life.
Yeah. If you consume enough current or modern things, especially on social media, it's so easy to get stuck in, of course you're going to be influenced by it somehow. So kind of anytime I'm working on any project or piece of clothing, or I just kind of put on a podcast or something just to hear other like creatives talk, but I try not to look at images or get too influenced by somebody else's clothes. Like, oh, this so-and-so is making way cooler clothes than me, or they got their clothes on Rihanna. Why aren't my clothes? Like, I try not to like really think like that. I got a lot of ideas and things I want to make. So I just try to stay in my own little world and just make them. And then I post them on the internet and try to get off.
I mean, this is the podcast to listen to for creatives. You know, if I must toot my own horn too.
Yeah, you got to.
But yeah, I think like showing that we have a very unique perspective here, and we have people who are just doing a lot of like cool, uniquely Baltimore and uniquely just original things that are here. So, and speaking of that, what do you think is special about some of the creatives here in Baltimore? Because I don't know, and maybe you have your own opinion on it, but I don't know if creators that have a connection or based in Baltimore really get on in the same way that someone is in a New York, in a Philadelphia, LA, or Chicago kind of get. It's just like you're here, you do your thing, and then you get discovered when you move to Brooklyn or something.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely see. I think Baltimore has like this rich DIY scene that I haven't, not that I've experienced it, but just that I've even like heard of in any other kind of bigger city. Like everyone just does their pop-up, does their music. It's all, they're just doing everything, and it's all in one kind of creative hub. And I think, the DIY scene is just really helpful for creatives. And then of course, community building. I think I see a new flyer, like COVID hasn't stopped the flyers on Instagram. It's great. But I think just this drive to do bigger and better things really pushes Baltimore creatives and the community as a whole.
I think that Baltimore has that kind of familial, that family oriented, connected thing where I feel like I've, talked to some folks through BOPA, and I started going through like people that they're connected to. And I was like, I've interviewed you. Or even most recently, I saw that Visit Baltimore commercial. Okay. And I saw literally 7 people that I've interviewed on there. And I was just like, why the hell am I not on there? What is happening?
You got to be next. I
mean, maybe they'll put me on it. I don't know. Just too tall. I don't know.
Time will tell.
So what is your take on that, where that, have you found it to be, well, first, what is your connection to Baltimore? Are you a Baltimorean? Are you a transplant? What is that situation for you?
Yes. So I guess when I was younger, maybe like, 10, 12, I grew up in the suburbs with my grandma and my dad, but my mom kind of was like in and out of my life. But when she would take me to like this like free bookstore in Baltimore. She would take me to the best flea market. She would take me to everywhere other than like the Inner Harbor, like the cliche things or the Science Center as a kid. So kind of that like exploration to find these like little nooks and crannies of the city. I was like brought on to that as like a young kid. So I think I probably lived in the city now like fully for like a year and a half. Mm-hmm. But I was always like adventuring around. Like, skating in the city brought me all around. Yeah. Going to these like nooks and crannies of the city that I guess people outside won't normally go to. So getting that aspect of the city and how it has its special charm and all these like little secret underground things of the city were always interesting. But I think it just started like that, and then moving up here, going to like the Crown and every other the Auto Bar, and then meeting everybody in like the other creative scenes.
Yeah, you're right there in that area.
Kind of blossomed from there.
Yeah, right there in that area. I have another question. My ball buster final question is related back to that. So just keep that in your mind. Keep that in your noodle. Yeah. Because I've been told that I have the intimidating questions, which I think I'm a nice guy, and people think I'm scary. So
I think sometimes you have to ask the hard questions though to really get people's perspectives and their ideas out.
It's all about authenticity here. I don't want the canned nonsense. So you mentioned you touched on music, I think, a little bit. So what would you say the last song that you've listened to is? Oh,
last song.
Or something that pops up, because it may not be like you may have listened to like the Wild ska soundtrack or whatever before.
I think the last song that I got out of my car today was like a Sade song. That was like the last song.
Okay. Yeah. A little Smooth Operator, I guess.
I don't think it was a, oh shoot. No, it wasn't Smooth Operator. But yeah, that was the last. It was like her greatest hits album I have on my phone or whatever. That was like, I remember turning off my car when I parked in my apartment. That was like the last voice I listened to.
I mean, that's a fire thing to listen to. That's Sade is it's a good last tune. I've been listening to. I interviewed the president of the Baltimore Jazz Alliance recently.
Wow.
And since we talked, I've been in this deep dive into Charles Mingus, and I was like, yes,
okay, I'm not too familiar with who that is.
Double bassist. If you're into to jazz like 50s, 60s, you should definitely check it out. Because I just did a deep dive through the Spotify, but I watched this documentary the past Friday, and it was about basically like where he was at as an artist in the late 60s. And it was interesting. So my weekend up until today has all been Charles Mingus all the time.
Sometimes you just gotta get into that. Sometimes a deep rabbit hole like that is good when you're like super influenced or interested in an artist as a whole. I think it's good to do that deep dive.
But it gets weird when you start saying phrases, going back to the being influenced thing, start saying phrases that are very anachronistic. I've been saying solid and calling everyone cats. Which is very 60s, and it's like, I am 35. What are we doing? So as we wind down, we got probably one more question. This is the one that's kind of the challenging one that some people have found. And again, thank you for being on here. This has been good.
Thanks for inviting me. This is great.
Oh, totally. All right. So as you blow up,
knock on wood.
You're going to be meeting so many different people. So look at it from that standpoint. If you had friends visiting Baltimore for the first time, what are 3 things you would recommend that they have to do if it's like a weekend, like they're here for
COVID free?
COVID free.
Okay. I want to go with the cliche and be like, get a crab cake or something by the water just to have it. And then at like nighttime, I'd say like, go to the Crown, go see like a local band. Like the Crown has like, it's like the deep house room. And then there's like the rap room. So you get kind of two good worlds in there. So I'd say definitely do that at night. Maybe like I'd say have to get some food somewhere. Do like a morning breakfast, seafood kind of thing. At night, you'd have to go to like the Crown or something to experience that. And
See, girl, you crazy or something like that?
Yeah, it's my favorite person ever, him and Xavier. And then, so those are 2. And then I'd say in the middle of the day, I'd do some research on like a low key like bookstore or something that you couldn't experience in a different state. Yeah.
So like Greedy Reads.
Sure, like Normal's bookstore, the book thing, something that has like a little bit of Baltimore charm that you couldn't find in Chicago or anywhere else,
You just gave yourself a follow-up question. You said crab cake. Now you have to say where the best crab cake is at. That's usually the ball buster. You fell into my trap there, Vinny.
I don't know. I myself have not ventured enough to have the best. So I don't know. You have to plug them for me. I
don't know. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool. You're off the hot seat, man.
That's good. That's not that bad. I think that's a good question to think about,
Yeah, because I think you want to have if you're inviting someone here, I think it's one civic duty to show them where the real stuff is at. Like as you touched on before with your experience coming down here and kind of checking out some of those nooks and crannies, those secret spots, if you will, get that authentic kind of thing. Like if I was inviting someone here, it's like, check out pretty much where all the art stuff is at and check out, some places where they have like really good food. It may not necessarily be pit beef. It may not necessarily be a crab cake, but it's just something that I think is quality food, because people have this belief that we don't have good food here, that we don't have culture here, and we are a beacon and a bastion of a lot of that stuff, and it gets overlooked. We have a lot of art galleries here. Yeah,
I think even like the skateboard community, Baltimore has been like looked over. It's like Philadelphia, DC, and then it's like Baltimore's like kind of like the skate scene here is like flourishing now a lot, but before I think even in that sense it was like looked over as
So lastly here, we'd like to give everyone an opportunity to shamelessly plug anything that they would like to plug, your social media, your whatever. I know you're not doing social media too heavy, but anything that comes to mind that you want to plug. And yeah, thanks again. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah,
thank you for having me on, of course. And yeah, if you want to follow me, my Instagram and Twitter is just at Vinnie Hager, VINNIEHAGER.
Cool. Then that's pretty much it. Do my sign off and then give you back the rest of your early evening.
Great.
So I'm Rob Lee, and for Vinnie Hager, this has been Getting to the Truth in This Art, and we're saying that there's art in and around Baltimore. You just have to look for it.